This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Ready. We are back, ready to go, locked and loaded. Manny Navarro, good afternoon, sir. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing great, brother. How are you?
Cannot complain. It's a Friday. I get a weekend off, although it'll be a bitch of a Monday to then Tuesday, but whatever. We'll deal with that when it gets there. At least we're off for the Christmas weekend, which is actually a good thing. We're not working on Sunday. We'll get to watch football. All right, so where do the Canes stand on the COVID front, first of all, for their Tony the Tiger Bowl game?
Well, I mean, it's one of those situations. They tested on Monday, basically waiting to see how many guys get cleared. They made the decision ultimately to, instead of leaving for El Paso and putting themselves in danger of getting more guys testing positive for COVID, basically hunker down here, leave the night before the game or leave the day before the game, like a regular season game. And my understanding, I think, is between 12 to 14 or 12 to 15 people who ultimately tested positive for Miami. And some of them are asymptomatic. So it's one of those deals where you got to wait the 8 days and then see if anybody else tests positive. So it's one of those deals. They're not like Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M had 38 guys or something ridiculous like that. I was told Miami's number was in the teens. Like I said, 12 to 15, 14, around that area.
Yeah, but supposedly Texas A&M was involved in an orgy. So that's probably what happened. All right.
Exactly. So and it's spread out. It's not like one position group either that for Miami. I think it's just the last time something like this happened, and it usually happens, it's the freshman dorms because all those guys are around each other. The rest of the kids live off campus. So when you're not practicing and you're just lifting weights and you're finishing finals and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of a sporadic thing. I don't think it's necessarily position groups that are affected or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. All right, so it's a matter of wait and see right now okay, now coaching wise, how many, I know Jess Simpson is the coach, but how many coaches are left handling the team at this point in time? And I know that Mario isn't involved, but is he kind of around? What's the deal? How is that whole dynamic working out?
Yeah, I mean, Mario's in the building. He's in his office, but ultimately, and I think he's watching the bowl practices, whenever they get together and do their walkthrough stuff, like he's meeting with guys, talking to guys, getting information on players. I think a lot of this is roster analysis, him sort of figuring out, hey, who are guys that we can really consider starters to our level versus guys that we know for sure can't help us, so they're doing their own sort of evaluations based off of film and whatnot. And he's obviously having conversations with coaches, about coming in and what their roles would be here, etc. So he's around, but ultimately this is all Jess Simpson and the guys that were left, and Garen Justice is supposed to come back and coach the bowl game. He's at SMU, so I think he will meet with the team in Dallas when they get out there. But there's other guys, guys that are analysts, guys that have they're around the program that have been on the staff that just aren't coaches, and they've been elevated to coaching type roles to help out.
You look at the coaches right now. Are you hearing anything? I know we've talked about this several times. Every time I bring you on, we kind of try to find out what's the latest. And obviously, I know that you have a feeling that a lot of the guys that he's going to get are active right now, and they're waiting for their responsibilities to end to then be named. So, having said all of that, have you heard anything whatsoever right now?
No, I mean, the only name that I've heard offensively that, besides guys that are still coaching right now, the guy that isn't coaching is Arkansas's Kendall Briles. I mean, as far as like coaching in the playoff or any big important games, that's a name that the players had mentioned to me as a potential. The freshman quarterback that they just recruited, Ja'Curry Brown, who signed with them. Briles is a guy who recruited him and also recruited Jay Garcia and has relationships with them. So from that perspective, that's a name that makes sense as far as a potential person. But I think that whoever Mario is looking at, the reason we haven't had any progress with either coordinator position or any of the assistants is because ultimately he's got to hire that coordinator first. And whoever he's waiting on, in my mind, has to be somebody who is playing in these playoffs or somebody who is still coaching important games or just can't get this done yet. I was told basically wait till after the bowl game is when we should expect stuff. Now there'll be rumors that pick up steam from now to then, but I think all the names that have been discussed or thrown out there by different people. I mentioned Glenn Schumann to you a few weeks ago, the Georgia co-DC, as somebody who is somebody who Mario interviewed before. That's the DC name that I think. I know other people have mentioned Derek Mason, the former Vanderbilt coach. Charlie Partridge was another name that was out there for defensive line coach, maybe defensive coordinator, assistant head coach type role. And then I know the Oregon defensive line coach is another guy whose name has been out there. But he's a guy who's lived out on the West Coast his whole life and coached out there, Joe Salavea. So, they're just names being tossed around. I think until we get coordinators hired, it's kind of hard. It depends on these guys' relationships, who those coordinators want to bring with them. So that's why I think there hasn't been anything concrete that's come out here.
All right. Of course, remember you can follow Manny Navarro on Twitter at Manny_Navarro and subscribe to The Athletic, folks. So support Manny and all the great writers there and get your news locally and nationally there at The Athletic. I know I do. I follow The Athletic and read all of their stuff. All right, Manny. Recruiting wise, Mario picked up another one this week, didn't he? Was it? Did he pick up another kid this week? He stole it from somebody or something like that?
No. I mean, are you talking about the end of last week? You got the tight end Jaleel Skinner, right? And then he picked up the kid from USC. I don't think
that's what it was.
Else.
No, that's right. It was. Yeah, it was late last week. That's what it was. Okay. All right. So
right.
No thievery this week then, unfortunately.
No thievery yet, but I think, look, trips are going to pick up here in January. There's going to be a bunch of kids visiting after the bowl game, making official visits here. Then you're going to have February. To me, and you're going to have the bowl announce. You're going to have two kids announcing, the two high school kids. Cyrus Moss is the defensive end out of California who will be announcing at the All-Star game. And then the receiver out of St. Louis. Both of those kids, could be announcing here on during their All-Star games, potentially coming to Miami. So those could be the next two additions, I think, publicly. You could have transfers. I mentioned the Clemson wide receiver, Frank Ladson, who's from South Dade. All of that stuff is just sort of, it's like it's Christmas time. So it's like none of this stuff is going to get announced now. It's going to be afterward. It's going to be, over the next few weeks.
After the new year?
After the new year. Yeah, I think that's when you'll start to see this kind of, you go back and look at the calendar last year, not a lot of people made big announcements around the holidays. It was always after the new year, like in early January. Like that's going to be a very, very busy time.
So what's the schedule breakdown? So there'll be more recruiting news coming up here in January, transfer portal stuff. How long is that window open for? And
well, the kids can ultimately sign on the first Wednesday in February. So if transfers wanted to do it then, if they wanted to come in January before the semester starts, I think Miami starts the second or third week in January is when classes begin and they have to be on campus. Then spring football starts, probably mid-March like usual. So anytime between now and then, you're going to see that they'll make a push to get some of these transfers on campus so that they can get them for spring football and get them integrated into their system.
Okay. All right. And is there another recruiting wave after that?
Yeah, you could potentially have, even in the summertime, guys get added to rosters.
Okay.
So I think once spring football is done, you'll see guys enter the transfer portal again because they're going to read the writing on the wall, right? They're going to say, hey, I don't have a role on this team.
Right.
And then at that point, you could see Miami try and pluck, some cornerbacks or some defensive ends, edge rushers, etc. They're trying. They're having conversations with a lot of different kids. It's just about fit. And it's hard right now because you don't have coordinators or assistant coaches in place. So it's hard to explain to these guys, hey, this is your position coach. That's why this has been sort of a quote unquote dead period for Miami News. Like until you start to see Mario hire his staff, I think then after that, you'll probably see some transfers and things be announced because kids want to see who they're going to be there, who their position coach is going to be.
Have you heard any changes inside the facilities, upgrades, things like that? Now that Mario's taken over, is there any news on things that they are now adding to the program?
Yeah, well, definitely the locker rooms. That was something that they were planning on upgrading even before Mario got hired. That was a plan that they were going to be spending a lot of money on this offseason to sort of bring it up to date even more than what it is. So that's that without question. There's other things that people have been discussing as far as helping the recruiting, upgrading the offices, the film, all those areas where the players go and meet. Stuff that was just built within the last few years, upgrading it even more so that it's top of the line, competes with the best in the country type of deal. Miami has a good situation. I mean, they've got the hospital and everything right there, and they've got, real doctors that come in and work and check these guys out when they have injuries. So I think they're in a very good situation as far as facilities. I know that was always the knock on them, right? Their facility sucked. Well, now they have the indoor practice facility. There's no more cancellation of practices. They've upgraded their weight room tremendously. The coaching offices are nice. Like to me, that arms race isn't what it's about. For me, it's always about are they going to spend money on quality coaches, right? On people to bring in there to make things better. And we know that Mario's been promised a lot of money, the biggest payroll for assistant coaches. I mean, you could see them ultimately spend several million on position coaches and coordinators here, upwards of $9 million for the staff.
Well, I like to hear that, brother. If they're willing to do that, then they got a great shot at being incredibly competitive year in and year out against the upper echelon. What are you working on The Athletic so folks can subscribe and support you, sir?
Yeah, I ended up being told you need to take vacation days because I had so many racked up. And so this week I was going to write a couple stories and they said, nah, look, enjoy family. Get lost, dude. You need to be able to turn those vacation days in. So I've been, busy here at home. I've got family coming into town for New Year's and for Christmas and all that. And so I will start cranking up again, probably Monday or Tuesday as both stuff happens. But, I've kept my eye on what's happening in this whole COVID situation. I've been making phone calls. I just haven't been writing stories because it's like, the game's still on. They haven't canceled anything. It's like little blurbs, little tweets that I can put out, little tidbits of information. We have something that I really enjoy at The Athletic, which is sort of like, I know different websites have like message threads and all that, but I can basically post in real time any little tidbits. And so we have that section at The Athletic website where all of our writers contribute sort of thoughts, tidbits, notes, things that aren't big enough for a story, but certainly to keep people up to date. And so a lot of my information I post in there, while I'm on vacation, so to speak.
By the way, folks, he's really lying. While on vacation, he's written 67 stories. They're all saved, and then on Monday he'll just start, just slamming Rojas with one story after another every 20 minutes, and then Rojas is scrambling to edit everything and post it. So he's written. Right now his mind is running during this interview. He's thought about 6 ideas already for new stories.
I have lots of ideas for stuff.
See what I mean?
It's just a matter of, hey, you know what? Spend time with your family. They've been ordered, doctor's orders to spend time with the family and not put any content on the website just yet. Hold on to after Christmas.
The only writer in the world that writes while he sleeps. That's Manny Navarro, baby. Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro, and more importantly, subscribe over at The Athletic and support him and all the other writers that wish they could write while they were sleeping, like Manny. Merry Christmas, my brother. Have a great weekend. We'll catch you next Tuesday.
Same to you, my brother. We'll talk.
You got it. There you go. Manny Navarro, man. He is such a good dude, man. Great dude. Love Manny Navarro.
This is the Big O Show.